Hi,
How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm fine. It's 7 a.m. here.
Oh,
Yeah, that's why I'm with a filter and I don't have my makeup because it's too early.
oh my God. I thought, yeah,
No, don't worry, don't worry. It's totally fine. It's totally fine. Don't worry.
very muddled up. Um, I'm really sorry. I hate being woken up at 7 a.m. Although I speak to people that are, say, maybe in Australia or
Yeah, yeah, no,
England.
yeah, it's because you're in England. So yeah, that's why like it's okay for me to adapt to your time zone. It's totally fine.
I have to say, it's such a busy, busy time that I'm really squeeze things in. Above all, I'm really struggling to kind of follow my email thread because there's so
Yeah.
many already discombobulated by nature.
I can imagine. Well, I wanted to introduce you first for the people here that are from Peru and are that are watching this live right now. Orsola De Castro, which it's funny because we basically have the same name. um, she's the co-founder of Fashion Revolution and the first ONG in the world that communicates about fashion consciousness. And they started in 2013 or 2014.
Our first big kind of coming out was 2014, but we worked throughout 2013, so that matters.
Yeah, I know that it was right after the Rana Plaza accident. So the first time I knew about you guys was when I was studying back at Parsons in New York, fashion marketing. And in one of my courses, we saw this documentary, The True Cost. And it was a big opening eyes for us as fashion students. Basically, well, me, I'm from Peru, and like everyone here, like we export a lot of cotton, a lot of alpaca, wool, and vicuña as well, a lot of fabrics. So when I was in this school that was like with a lot of international students, I learned how like the fabrics in my country were so like valued by them. Like I literally I wasn't that conscious about it. So for example, like in Peru, you can buy a coat, an alpaca wool coat. Here that would cost you, I don't know, like $200 or yeah, like, or 300 pounds maybe. But if you go to Milan, you will see the exact same coat, but just because it's from Max Mara, it would cost 5,000 euros, So, that's like the thing, that I discovered around that time, because it's just because of the label.
Yep.
Like it's just basically the label. So, first, before we talk about Fashion Revolution, I wanted to introduce your career a bit. You are Italian. You're from Italy.
Yes.
Yeah, you were born in Rome, and you have been in the fashion industry for a while. You can tell us about that a bit. Before you formed Fashion Revolution, I knew that you have like a couple of lines. The one that it was called From Somewheres.
So, yeah, I actually probably better introduce myself because I'm aware of the fact that the information that's navigating online, it's a little bit the life of my twin sister. It doesn't really relate to me.
Oh.
I feel that this. No, I don't have a twin sister. I call myself online.
Oh, okay.
I don't check anything. I have not read one article where my name is mentioned or seen myself on a TV, on a screen. So I notice occasionally things get a little bit muddled up. So I had a brand called From Somewhere, which I started in 1997, and it was one of the pioneering brands about upcycling. So we started off using secondhand, then we moved on to literally sweeping factories' floor and literally sweeping factory floors and picking up unwanted pieces of beautiful clothing. We moved on to large quantities. I cooperated with Tesco Clothing for the first ever upcycling collection online, made from their remnants in their factories in Sri Lanka. I did something similar for 5 years with Topshop. reusing their waste from their warehouses in London and in Turkey. And I also reuse an awful lot of Speedo swimsuits.
So how did that work? Like, you went into the fabrics and you literally like use we call it the merma here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I did that for nearly 17 years with my brand From Somewhere. Basically, we would just take all of the things that the factories didn't need. In Italy, the system for disposing of waste is very rigorous but expensive. So it was convenient in a way for small factories to give their unwanted materials to us. And we did it for many, many years. Some brands were not keen, so I couldn't use, but not many. Brands were very keen. I mean, Alaya was the first to say, give her anything she wants. I had his proofs. I had things that nobody had seen, things that never went into production. And many other brands were happy to let me use their offcuts, their waste, and then their bigger remnants, end of production, the usual stock that many people are using now, stock fabric. But at the time, it was 1997, so it was very pioneering. It hadn't really been done before. And production was as speedy as it is now, so there was a sense of that reusing stock was containing somehow. This gone bonkers. I watched it go bonkers under my very eyes. So between, I'd say, the year 1999, which is when I really started digging, to now the industry is completely unrecognizable. And I don't know why we're still using the same statistic when it comes to fabric used or garments made, because it can't be the same as 2015. We see with our naked eyes, we see the increase in materials, in merchandising, and all of that.
Yeah. So you had that line. And then I read, I don't know if that is true, but that you started with a partner, Filippo Ricci. You started Estetica.
Partner, and then we married. And Estetica was the very first design-led area for sustainable fashion within London Fashion Week with the British Fashion Council. That was called Estetica. And yes, co-founder, co-curator, together with Filippo and Anna Orsini from the BFC. And it ended 2014, actually, when Fashion Revolution was just beginning, and it kind of took over my life, really.
And then, you've basically been an activist for fashion consciousness for a while, since the 90s. Like, I could say that you were one of the pioneers in that area, right? So let's talk about Fashion Revolution right now. How have you guys been evolving since when you created it back in 2013? You're right now all around the world. You're not just in England. How did that operate, and how was the journey of making that happen?
Fashion Revolution was born very spontaneously out of a need and out of a community that saw that need. After the Rana Plaza disaster, there were so many voices of corridors saying, what are we going to do? What is it that is going to happen now? And Carrie Summers, my co-founder, actually came up with the concept of a fashion revolution when she was in the bus. We knew each other from Estetica, so she called me. And my impetus was that of, bringing together as big a community as I could possibly bring. And those were my strength and my contact from years of it. And I guess potentially from this vision of bringing in people came the actual vision of Fashion Revolution, which was not an event to commemorate. At the time, it really was a hybrid. To be honest with you, we didn't really know what we were going to be, but what we knew that we were going to be was the heart and soul of the people that believed in this organization from the start. And that was the founding team and the country coordinators who started joining us immediately. For me, this is Fashion Revolution. It's about the people who joined, about the people who keep on joining, because you can't make a movement such as Fashion Revolution centralized, because otherwise you're replicating exactly what you are trying to dismantle. We are trying to dismantle a fashion industry where the top matters more than the bottom. The individuals matter more than the multitude. And so we have to act differently. And we are our country coordinators. So to all of you, I will say, find your country coordinators. We have a team in Peru. But also find your coordinator from where your mother came from where you travel, from the places that have touched you in life, from dreams and hopes,
or from where you see that you are aligning in what they're doing. For example, I watch a lot of Fashion Revolution France. I see that they are very activists. I like how they, I like it a lot.
And we are all different. You see, this is the point of an inclusive conscious. Conscious means that you're not asleep. So none of our country coordinators are asleep. Everyone sees and interprets the global effect of the fashion industry in their own terms, from their own perspective. This is what matters. This is the value of an organization such as Fashion Revolution, that we listen to the people that matter, because the people that matter are the ones that are on the ground, gathering that information, understanding what needs to be changed, knowing deeply and intimately what's right and what's wrong for them and their community.
So let's talk about the theme of this year, which is money, fashion, power. What I understand is that in the world of today, we all know that if you have money, you have power. What I understand of the campaign is basically what you guys are trying to communicate. It's that how the fashion system works and how these companies that basically are the ones that control the fashion industry around the world, they have so much power. That's why they can do what they do, which is like modern slavery in the fabrics and the sweatshops, and contaminating the planet, because they have the power to do so. So can you tell us a bit about that? How did you guys came up with this theme?
So the theme is old, actually. Money, Fashion, Power is our first fanzine. I was working on that in 2016. And I think what's important for us, particularly this year, is also maybe for once to blow our own trumpet, and say, look, we were talking important stuff when it wasn't really something you discussed in the super. When we started talking about transparency, the word was hardly used. People didn't talk about supply chains. Now, all of this normal vernacular, it's part of our language. It's because we have absorbed that knowledge. So, and that's all that Fashion Revolution says, absorb that knowledge. We can't generalize too much. Something like 90+% of brands, 40 brands have control over 90+% of the supply chain and the high street and so on and so forth. We need to go brand by brand and speak accurately. Not all brands have in the supply chain, but the majority do. And what's the difference between exploitation, paying somebody a minimum wage, or, all of these categories need to become a part of the information at the point of purchase. So where we need to be as a customer of those brands, it must matter to you just as much the size of your butt as the size of the pay of the person that made those jeans. As a customer of that brand, it should matter to you that your perfect shade of pink doesn't contain azo dyes, which are carcinogenic, not just to you, but to your community once you wash them in the public waterways. So the whole point of Fashion Revolution, and this is why we are a global movement, is that we wouldn't presume to generalize for the whole of the world. So now the work of our team in Chile, for instance, really highlighting what's happening with waste in their country. We know now the biggest win that happened in India.
Yeah, in the Atacama Desert.
Yes, in relation to artisans' pay and moving them up to a fairer pay. Not fair, but fairer from before. So all of this is the nuances that make not only fashion individual, because we all choose what to wear, but fashion pertinent to something like 98% of the population. And how accuracy and not sensationalism is what we need in order to learn. And we are living in a society where, the attention span is this big. Yes. is that wide because everything is the new this or the. I actually once received an email, somebody wanting to interview me, asking me that if renting fashion was going to change the world. I mean, that's how narrow-minded we are when it comes to looking for accurate information. I hope that this is what we do. I hope that we show that things are different everywhere all over the world. And I hope that we encourage people to really trust the local, not just the global, to really look for what is around that corner, around their corner, because that's the easiest place.
And then, the Fashion Revolution Week is the week that you guys show to the world the Fashion Transparency Index of the year.
That's changed, actually, the Fashion Transparency.
Oh, okay.
It's already 2 years that it's in July. So fashion, and it was a little bit because it was taking over Fashion Revolution Week, and it didn't give the flavor and the identity of the teams that weren't working on it, the opportunity to shine. And so now for Fashion Revolution Week, we concentrate more on our Fashion Open Studio initiative, which is encouraging young designers all over the world to open their studios and bring their communities in and show to the global community where the real solutions are. And obviously our country coordinators, there's 94 of them, have events happening all over the week. But the actual Transparency Index will be in July. Okay.
So, I've been reading the Fashion Transparency Index 2021, and what I saw, sarcastic or funny or whatever, it's one of the brands that had the highest decrease in scores since 2020 was Topshop. So that was, and I was like, wait, but Ursula used to work with them. So
who I worked with before Fashion Revolution has, really my life then was very different.
Okay.
Upcycling designer, and as such, I consulted brands exclusively on how to upcycle. I don't work on the Fashion Transparency Index because I am I'm the creative director. So it's the policy team that works on the Fashion Transparency Index. But again, there is information on every single brand, but this is the information that the brands provides us with. The Fashion Transparency Index is about public disclosure and what brands disclose about their supply chain. But and Topshop, I think, was quite new because they weren't in the Fashion Transparency Index. But again, as I said, my individual work from brands from my previous career is only really about a method in which to make clothing. The influence of Fashion Revolution is so much more potent than that because it's telling brands, show us what you're doing or we won't trust you.
Or we won't buy from you, yeah. So can you explain a bit to the public what the Fashion Index, Transparency Index is? Because a lot of people don't know what we're talking about.
The best way to find out about the Fashion Transparency Index is not to listen to me, but go and read the whole thing. Again, this is not a document that was designed for the consumer. It was very much designed for the industry. So it goes back to what I was saying before. We can't generalize. We can't take a little. You just have to go and learn. Is transparency what matters to you? Go and look at the Fashion Transparency Index. But fashion is individual. I, for instance, if I was a consumer or a customer, that wouldn't be my way in at all. I mean, not at all. I have always gone into this conversation through my creativity, through my impetus, and through my emotions. The Fashion Transparency Index is a set of numbers. It makes very little sense to me, unless obviously I read the whole thing, and then it does. But it's a hard one to start with. So this audience, the people that are following us today, some will think, oh, great, a big set of numbers, statistics, things that I can reference here and there. I'm going to go and look at the Fashion Transparency Index. But otherwise, people could just as well, I've just seen Ursula's book. Yeah, exactly. Somebody might actually want to get into this.
Yeah, I haven't got it
with the book
yet.
So, the love story, the concept of keeping our clothes for a long time, the concept that repairs might lead to reparations. Fashion Transparency Index is one element. Fashion industry affects us all. And whether you like it or not, whether you're interested in fashion or not, every morning you're going to have to get dressed.
Yes.
That's the point. As you choose your pink, your red, or your black, so you choose what you want to make a change in this industry. Vegan, plastic, reusing, fur, animal rights, human rights, the rights of the environment. Pick and make a start. That's the only way you're going to carry it on.
So let's talk about your book, because someone just mentioned it. I haven't read it yet. I must be honest about it. But I'm dying to do so. I just have like a lot of books that I already bought that I have to read. That's like a thing. I told myself that I won't buy more books until I have finished the ones that I already have, because of like paper waste and whatever. So
on recycled certified paper.
Okay, of course. So yeah, tell us about how you came up with the idea of writing your own experiences. Why should we read this book?
So I'm not confident enough to have come up with the idea of my own book. I wouldn't have dreamt it, because it was a dream for me. I love writing. Writing is a solace. And I've written a lot of the little bits and the snippets for Fashion Revolution, but like a whole book, no way. Somebody contacted me on Instagram and said, we'd like to do a book. We'd like to commission a book on repairing. And me being my usual, probably self-harming, honest as I always am, I just replied saying, I'm really not that good at mending. And then I said, there's so many better people than me. And then I thought, I must be stupid here, because I've been contacted fantastic agent, one of the best in the country, asking me to write a book, and here I am, rather than making space for me, telling her everybody else could do it better. So I just replied back and said, actually, I'm not good at mending. I couldn't do you a book on how to mend, but I could do you a book on why to mend. And she said, come to my office now, pretty much. And that was up fast. So I knew that I was never going to be the one to write a book on darning. But I also know that I'm probably one of the, that I'm a good voice in listening as to why you should be darning instead. And I felt that was enough. And the book is a combination of the two. And in my heart, in my soul, in my guts, which is where my brain lives, by the way, it is about that. It's about repairs leading on to reparations.
What would you advise to the people that have not been that conscious about what they are consuming in terms of fashion, of fabrics, of clothes, and how can they start in getting involved in trying to mend this whole problem that we are living?
Well, again, as I said before, it depends who that person is. There's so many people in the world that really don't give a shit. And I'm not the one to change their mind, because really, at the end of the day, I don't presume to change people's mind. I don't want to do that. I just try to explain things in a logical way, in a way that makes sense, talking a lot about common sense, so that people find it in their own selves to start their own journey. So in many ways, what activists do, and I do with a bunch of millions of activists all over the world, is that you just shine a light, hoping that somebody is going to be interested in what you're showing them. But then at the end of the day, if they're not, they're not. And my answer is always the same, and I've already given it, really, which is open your wardrobe, your closet, whatever you call it, and check what matters to you. This is not a diet. We're not just going on a juicing diet for a week and then that's it. So as I mentioned about the Fashion Transparency Index, that wouldn't have moved me 20 years ago to start anything. It's not my thing. But the beauty of treating a piece of clothing like you would your own skin, seeing darning and mending as a tattoo, that really grabbed me. And it's 20 years that I have this conversation with myself. So anyone that wants to start from your way of caring. Where is it that you care? That's your hook. That's your only hook. That's, at the end of the day, your only impetus. I've met so many vegans that started on this order not to hurt the fluffy rabbit, or, you know, the fur, or, you know, only to realize that vegan plastic had a parallel effect on a totally different type of creature, ourselves included. And that journey has changed accordingly. So you have to start with something that matters. You have to have the open-mindedness to know that you're prepared to change your mind, to discover more. And you have to a certain extent, trust the void. You know, you're going to go through a void. You go through grieving as well. When you realize the truth, you go through a process of grieving. But, you know, what is a trend? A trend is somebody doing something amazing and other people following them by example. So, you know, you open your wardrobe, you do something meaningful for yourself, be it mending your own clothes or giving somebody a dignified job in mending your clothes. You go out on the road, you meet your neighbor, you talk to them, they're interested, they love your jumper that's been mended. They come along the journey with you. By the time you reach your local square, you've got a group. That's change. So to imagine that any one of us can get to a point of change, boom, like a catapult, that's not going to happen. Change is incremental, it's small, and it's felt. That's what I believe anyway.
If you let me, I would like advise, if someone wants to like start being more conscious about what they're wearing, besides seeing the label as fashion revolution teaches us continuously. For me, for example, it started going through my grandma's closet, through my mom's closet. You know, like this was my mom's from the 90s, I think, you know, like, and it's a great blouse, like made here in Peru. I don't know, like maybe just starting, you know, you have a quote that says the most sustainable garment is the one that you have already on your closet. So yeah, you can go into your friends' closets, into your mom, into your aunt's closets, and maybe you can, like, you know, exchange pieces of clothing, or maybe just somewhere. For example, yesterday I was like, I had a pair of jeans, and I was like, I'm losing weight right now, so I said to my roommate, do you want this? Like, you know, like just like by exchanging, or just by giving it by her, because I won't be using it, because I know it's a kind of jean, if you mend it, it doesn't like adjust well to your body. So I prefer into giving it to somebody else, but not profiting for it. Or maybe like you can do it profiting, but I don't know if that jean costed me on $100 and I've used it like 10 times or 15. You can sell it by, I don't know, $50 or something. Like, you know, like having this like fashion system, you know, like circular fashion system, because at the end of the day, what I've realized in these years is that we really don't need so much clothes. And I was a fashion editor for a while. So what I realized is that we really don't need much clothes in our closet, you know, like.
I agree and disagree. I think we need to be very careful again in, you know, what works for one necessarily work for the other. I have the biggest wardrobe in the history of wardrobes. It's probably as big as my bedroom. And my clothes have been with me forever. I'm not a frequent buyer. You can gather that I'm not a frequent thrower. But to be honest with you, Ursula, I need a shitload of clothes. I really, really do. I mean, I maybe change even twice in a day. I wear all of my clothes.
Yeah.
And I also love my clothes getting really old and I won't mend them. There's like a chunk. They're not all together.
Yeah.
They don't.
That's cool also.
Clothes that just, I let them break.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, you have a different approach in terms of like what you have and what you need and whatever. But what I mean is that, well, maybe your closet is made from more conscious wear because when did you start like going into this? But what I was meaning to say is that, for example, right now here, in Peru, like people prefer going into a fast fashion store and buying like, like a lot of things than going into like a designer or like into some label that I know that they work with artisans and they do like fair trade, and that piece will last like forever, and not like these clothes that will like disintegrate in like few washes.
One of the things that I think it's very important, though, and this is, I believe that we activists made a massive mistake. In fact, we made a mistake. We played in the hands of the fast fashion brands' own goal for the last 20 years. The more we say that fast fashion and cheap fashion is so badly made that it cannot be repaired, we're just playing into their hands. Actually, no. Fast fashion is simply made, which makes it simple to repair. I mean, if I go into my own closet, I take my beautiful vintage, like I wouldn't dream of trying to have anything to do with that beautiful French seam or all of those details. An expert. But a Zara skirt, a pretty little thing skirt, the ones that I might find in my daughter's bedroom, my bloody cat can pick up a hem that's fallen. And so that's the change. Because Gen Z, and I have 4 children, including 2 in the sort of Gen Z bracket. And, my daughter buys secondhand men's resells on a constantly. She actually owns things for a very, very short amount of time, but then sells them on. I am her mother, and she's, she really is her own person. This is what they do. But they have clocked in that a broken pair of trousers is going to sell less well than a pair of trousers that is intact. And so she picks up a needle and thread and mends the cheap thing, skirt or trousers, whatever they were. This is the message. This is the message that needs to go out. That anyone that's cheaply made, and everybody should mend everything that's cheaply made, that broken. In particular, the brands who made them. Because if your entire business model is designed on exploiting people and nature by selling very, very cheap clothes, then your moral obligation is to ensure that there are very, very cheap repairs available in every single store you've got.
What you're saying is actually true. It's very more easy to repair something that is like from Zara than Biba's vintage skirt or dress. Someone is saying the cheap fabrics are the ones that can't be recycled, so we absolutely need to keep them and look after them.
Exactly my point. The cheaper the fabric, the more expensive it is for the planet. The more these blends are, in our wardrobe, the less they're going to ever biodegrade anywhere near, so it's absolutely true. We need to bury them in our own wardrobe and pass them on, because, that's the only place where they will, put it this way, that's the place where they will do the least harm.
My dad is a lawyer. I mentioned him that I was going to interview you today. The first thing that he asked me was, but what about these brands, these companies? Like, do they like legally sue them, like legally? And I told him, I think that they don't. I think that that's what their own employees do when they make like a protest or something. So what I understand is that Fashion Revolution as an ONG, they don't legally demand a brand, right?
No,
you just like...
No, we obviously we can't demand the single brand. That's really not the scope of what we do. It's not pinpointing one thing that's gone wrong. It's looking at an entire system that has never really had any sense from industrialization. It designed itself in order to exploit. So, we do lobby legislation. We do, our policy team works tirelessly in identifying how and where best our voice can be heard. Right now, one of our biggest initiatives coming up is in Europe, and it's centered around basically gathering 1 million signature, because if you gather 1 million signature, the EU has an obligation to look at that topic. It's called an ECI, European Citizens Initiative, first one that was ever done on this topic. So again, this is something that we're pioneering. But, it is as I mentioned before, it's about keeping a balance between the workers, the nature, the planet, what's happening all over the world. So it's not about suing one individual brand, but making people understand that an industry that employs as many people as fashion, that touches as many people as fashion does, has to be regulated. Same as when we eat. We need to know for our health reasons where it comes from and how it was made. Fashion should follow precisely those same rules. So not only should we know that all of our products are made in dignity by workers that are paid a living wage, but we should also know exactly written down all the ingredients in the clothes that we are wearing, because it's not just our own body via our skin, which is the second most absorbent organ in the body. It's not just us who are sponging in these chemicals and these materials, but we're washing our clothes. And as we know, for instance, polyester sheds millions of microfibers every God knows how many washes. So, it's about responsibility. And when it comes to fashion, responsibility needs to be with brands and legislators so that customers and consumers can make responsible choices. You cannot make conscious or responsible decision if you don't have adequate information. And without visibility, transparency, traceability, and that information right under your very eyes and verified, you cannot fix what's going wrong. So that's really, in a nutshell, what we try to do at Fashion Revolution with such an enormous movement. We are millions of people at this point in time after 9 years. So, there is still a lot of work to be done, and hopefully we're doing it right.
So, well, just to finish this conversation, which has been amazing for me to finally know you through our phones, what would you tell, or what is the final message for the people that we are continuously informing and want to know about this? Like, me personally, I try to expand the message. I always tell everyone, have you seen the documentary True Colors? Have you seen? And I try to tell it, to expand it to the people that I know. How can we promote it? How can we as citizens make our voices louder?
Well, again, do you want to have a loud voice? Not everybody wants to have a loud voice.
Well, yeah.
And I have a loud voice, but I don't think it's what I wanted when I started, weirdly enough. So my first is always, what can you do? What really, how much can you bring to the table? How far are you prepared to go? And my second one is always knowledge. So when we started Fashion Revolution, my tagline for Fashion Revolution, the first thing that came into my mind was be curious, find out, do something. That's still the progression that I ask people to follow. Develop a curiosity, read as much as you can, and then put yourself out and ask, what can I do? How can I help? It's in a way, it's about being rigorous in what you want to give, but be flexible in where you might be needed. You might be needed to take a place of relevance. You might be needed just to ensure that somebody else takes a place of relevance. But important is to be ready and willing and able, I guess they say. We're not going to have much of an industry and much of a world unless we take matters into our own hands. The one thing that we've never done as people, or certainly not in memory, is to treat each other as equals. That would be a good start for a change. And in order to treat each other as equals, we're all a part of this conversation. So, it's a big cultural shift that needs to happen. as much as the structure of the fashion industry, its culture has changed. And we have an opportunity to define and design the culture that we want via the clothes that we wear. I think it's a good opportunity. It's certainly one that's kept me busy for a while and interested. And I guess my third one is that people think that this is difficult. It's not. It may be complicated, but it's not difficult. It's doable, 100% doable. And you can start today.
Well, thank you, Ursula. It's been amazing finally meeting you.
Thank you.
Face to face.
I can't believe we finally did manage to meet, and I can't believe we have the same
name.
I read your emails. It's like, oh my God. And funny, we never met. I'm pretty sure we must have, or we know a person in common. But anyway, it's been lovely to meet you. And again, please follow the team in Peru and all of your teams, you know, in South America or wherever your heart fancies.
In Europe or wherever, wherever country you're curious about. Like, I just saw Fashion Revolution Egypt was, it was amazing.
No, I know. That's the thing. I mean, you know, I fall in love with the teams each time, you know, because of they're so recognizable. Each has their own heart and soul involved in their struggle. So follow them and give them love. Because they are we.
Thank you so much. It's been amazing. Great talking to you. Bye.
Bye. Ciao, ciao.